Okay, Mrs. Greer, would you like to take attendance to see if there are quorum?
Zero.
Present.
Present.
Dave Delaney.
Present.
Seneca.
Present.
Dave Parada.
Present.
Okay, let's rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have two presentations on the agenda tonight. Ms. Barb Reese called me up earlier, and she said she'd be unable to make it today because of an emergency that came up. So we'll go right to Amy Gonzala. She's the superintendent of the Women's Rights National Historic Park. Is that the right title, Amy?
You did. You said it right. Thank
Okay. Come up to the podium, please,
Thank you.
and you're going to have
I'm
Andre
going to finish
speak
up.
in a little while to finish up.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to make a presentation this evening. Again, I am the Superintendent of Women's Rights National Historical Park. My goal today is for us as Seneca Falls residents to figure out a way to work together to benefit the town, while I'd like to provide a little bit of clarification and some information on the national park. First of all, one of the things that I find in town is that people confuse the National Women's Hall of Fame and Women's Rights National Historical Park. For those that don't know the difference, the National Park is, of course, a federal agency, the National Park Service. I am a federal employee, and that gives me some freedom in certain ways, and it does give me some restrictions on others, and I'm going to clarify a little bit on that. For your information, the park was legislated in 1980. One of the things that I hear often from local residents is that folks think that we take a side in terms of the politics of this nation or the town. As a federal employee, as a National Park Service employee, of course, I am not able to take a side on politics. So the things that occur at the park have nothing to do with the partisan challenges that are going on throughout the nation and possibly in town. That's an important thing to note because, for example, recently I was asked about why the park had allowed for there to be a demonstration or a rally or a women's march on January 21st. So you all may not know, but every federal land in the United States has a First Amendment area. That means that when a person comes to me and requests to have a demonstration, a rally, an event at the park, I am obligated by the First Amendment, I am obligated by Congress to give that permit. Doesn't matter that I agree with the voices that are coming forward. So that's an extremely important thing to realize. And for me, that's a really good demonstration of a democracy. For me, that shows that the federal government doesn't mind hearing the alternate view, the alternate voice. That really is a great demonstration of democracy. We recently had another First Amendment event at the park that was, I believe, 1 or 2 weekends ago. That was a gay pride event. Once again, a First Amendment request was made, I am obligated to give that permit. Stu has often heard from me as I issue those permits. I usually do try to advise the local police department. But once again, I really hope that you all can take that as a show of how our democracy works. That if the federal government is allowing people to give an alternate voice, a dissenting voice, certainly that is furthering our democracy. Another thing that I have been told is the kind of events that we have at the park. So Congress mandates for national parks to not just talk about history that occurred way back when, and in this case we're talking about the first Women's Rights Convention that occurred in 1848. Now, it is my mandate as the superintendent of this park to connect history to current events. I'm mandated by that. And so the park talks about women's rights, human rights, and civil rights. And again, that is connecting history to the present. So it is our hope that the locals and visitors coming to the park can see the relevance of why it is that we are protecting these historic sites and why we're telling these stories, pretty much. A couple of other things that I would like to ask is the park currently receives about 55,000 visitors to Seneca Falls. I'm not feeling the love, folks. I'm thinking if a venue in Seneca Falls brings in 55,000 visitors to town, then I would really like to talk about how can the town work together with the national park for the benefit of the town, for the benefit of the national park. At the moment, we're already going to surpass those numbers. So I don't know what they're going to be, but we've already surpassed those numbers in terms of as we've looked in the past. So, we have a national park. It's bringing in that many visitors, and I guess my question to the town board and to the residents of Seneca Falls is, how can we work together to bring in some economic prosperity for all, in a sense, right? We have seen, and I should point out that the predominance of the visitors to the national park are national visitors, they're not locals. So it's my goal, how do I bring in the local community to visit their national park? That's one question that I've got. Our number 2 visitors are international visitors. They're having a little bit of a hard time feeling welcome in town. So we have visitors visiting from Japan, from Germany, from Europe. How can we create an environment in Seneca Falls that diverse people, diverse languages, diverse voices feel welcome? So I will give you an example because it's not just visitors that are feeling a little bit of that pain. Last summer, we hired a young man from California as an intern. I've said this story to the Chamber of Commerce. I've said it everywhere that I can say it. So if you've all met with me previously, you've probably heard that story. But I had a young man from California. He spoke English, but in one of the eateries in town, he was on the phone speaking Spanish. So a person in the restaurant came to him and said that he was being rude and he needed to leave the restaurant. That young man resigned the next day from Women's Rights National Historical Park. So I think there's a message that is being given to people that are different, that are visiting the town. It certainly impacts the park that I run, because I can't just have folks starting and then resigning immediately because they're not feeling welcomed. So, how can we make an environment in town that receives 55,000 people that probably speak a different language, but still feel welcome in town? How can we receive these employees and make them feel welcome, that even though they're from California or they're from Texas or from Minnesota, that they are welcomed in they certainly are welcome in the park, but I'd like them to get the feeling that they are welcomed in town. So it's another question I've got for you all. How can we create that sort of environment in town? The last thing that I will be saying is, and again, I do try to make notes. I'm a very fast talker. In about 2 weeks, we've got convention days coming up. We expect to see about 10,000 people coming through town in 3 days' time. I'm getting phone calls from television stations all over the nation that want to come and film and want to see the different events that we're having. We're making this a big, big deal because it is, of course, the New York State suffrage centennial. We really wanted to show something in the town where it all started. How can we create a really fun environment? We're going to have everything from movies to music to dancing to speakers to family films on Friday night and Saturday night. I would very much like to ask that same question. How can we make this event something where the public and the nation will see that this is the place to come to in 2018, 2019, and once again in 2020 during the National Suffrage Centennial? We really do hope to triple those numbers, not 10,000, but we do hope to have, I'm not trying to scare the police department here, but we really are trying to really increase the numbers, and my goal is to at least triple those numbers. So more than anything, folks, I'd like to give you all an opportunity to ask me about the national park so there's the proper understanding of it, number one. But number two, maybe you all have some ideas for me on how we can grow what's already in this town. That's all I've got. Questions? Hi, Greg.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight and giving your presentation. Secondly, I think if we want to work together as a group, we have to have a process. And that process only starts with interesting people. So I would recommend that we could form a joint committee and go from there. It's unfortunate it's this late in the game for 2017, but looking up to 2018, 2019, and especially 2020, when the focus is going to be on Seneca Falls, the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. And I think we could start planning, start planning now for those events, now for the events in 2018, now for the events in 2019, perhaps even getting out a pamphlet to people, to the local stores, getting the local businesses to say, hey, we're going to have X amount of people coming into town. And we in this town want economic development and businesses to come into town, but also we depend on tourism and we depend on the outliers, the wine trails, the casino. People come into town for those things, but the tourism in Seneca Falls is about the history of Seneca Falls. So if we have a committee on how we can get that information out, how can we get the local businesses to gear up for these 3 or 4 or 5 days of all these people coming down and being able to utilize the services in the downtown area and feel comfortable in this area and like it and go back with a good feeling. I think that can only be done by sitting down and talking and planning process for the next few years to come.
I agree, and I'm in. I began attending the Economic Development Corporation's meeting last month, and we have some, I have some really strong ideas. It's real, sometimes we can create these projects that are really large, and maybe we'll succeed at them, and maybe we don't, but we've already got some pretty cool places in this town already. We've got the It's a Wonderful Life Museum, the Ideas Center, we've got the Historical Society, we've got the Presbyterian Church, we've got the National Women's Hall of Fame. If we could somehow bring all of these places together, and it's not asking for funds. I know that, I can't accept funds in any way as a federal employee and agency, but if we could just pool our resources in a way that benefits everyone. I recommended that Canal Days be combined with Convention Days, because why are we putting resources into one event and then, we've just depleted those resources, and why not make the entire town a big celebration so that visitors, if they don't like one thing, they go to something else. And I think we cover quite a bit of interest in terms of the different venues that exist in town. So I'm in. I really hope that the town people, have some buy-in on this, and I hope that we can get some support for it.
Okay. You and I should sit down and talk about how to start that process of a committee. Committee membership should be someone from this board, 1 or 2 members from this board, some members from your park, and some community members who are interested in pursuing this partnership and making it work. And I think we can come up with some really good ideas and move on with this.
I would like to say, and I will be restating this tomorrow at the Economic Development meeting, but the federal government is really looking to highlight the 2020 National Suffrage Centennial. I'm hoping to get extra funding leading up to that. They are already funding an extra employee for me. Now that may not seem like a big thing, but believe me, when you don't have a lot of money and a big budget, an extra employee is a big thing. But New York State is also looking to fund things in New York State, and they are really looking to Seneca Falls to take the lead. So, thank you. I appreciate that. There is one request that I had, and I already discussed that with Greg today over the phone, but we're looking for parking for the visitors and folks that will be coming in for convention days, so maybe we can get some ideas. What we are going to have is buses. We're going to have buses going to the visitor center on Fall Street and to the Stanton House on Washington Street. So we're hoping that we can come up with some input from you all in terms of where we can have visitors parking, so that the buses will then pick them up and bring them to the sites in town.
I'm on with the Seneca Falls Car Show, and we're always looking for extra parking. You could ask Dwayne Moore from Sanderson Moore Funeral Home for his parking lot. We asked him for our car show, which normally he doesn't have, as long as there's not a wait going on that day, but that weekend there, if nothing's going on, I'm sure they'll have some cars parked in there.
So which funeral home is that?
Sanderson Moore on State Street, right next to the
Okay, on State
post office.
Okay, I'll do that.
See Dwayne Moore, and I'm sure he'd oblige you.
Okay, that's great. Anway had a few words that she wanted to say as well. I only had a few, I only brought a few Convention Days brochures. I'd like to leave them if anyone is interested. See, I'm a very fast talker.
Okay, I'm just going to say a few words. So, Amy and I talked about this because we, the Idea Center for the Voices of Humanity and the Seneca Falls It's a Wonderful Life Museum have partnered a lot with Women's Rights National Historical Park. And we do it based on this common theme in this town about promoting the value of each and every person. You know, that's what women's rights is about, it's what human rights is about, and it's the message of It's a Wonderful Life. So we have been working together a lot on convention days. There's a Convention Days Incorporated Committee, and I just wanted to mention a couple of things about that. This is also the centennial of the first woman being elected to Congress, Jeanette Rankin from Montana. And it's the 50th anniversary of Another Mother for Peace, which was a bipartisan organization started in the time of the Vietnam War by 15 women. And Donna Reed, who's obviously connected with It's a Wonderful Life, was one of the leaders of this organization. And one of their major efforts was to create a Department of Peace and a Secretary of Peace. And that idea goes back to Benjamin Rush, one of the first signers of the Declaration of Independence, and Benjamin Banneker, who wrote an almanac. And so in memory of these women and of that effort, we are going to launch a petition in Seneca Falls for a Secretary of Peace and a Department of Peace. And that's going to happen during Convention Days. We are also having the world premiere of a one-woman play about Dr. Mary Walker, who I'm sure many of you know. She was one of the first women to become a physician in the U.S. She's worked assistant surgeon in the Civil War. She's the only woman to ever receive the Medal of Honor. And Lloyd J. Schwartz, who's well-known in Hollywood. He's for television and theater. His father was Sherwood Schwartz, who created the Brady Bunch and many other well-known television shows. Lloyd has also worked with his father on those things. He has written this play, and he's chosen to premiere it in Seneca Falls versus premiering it in New York City or in Los Angeles. And so that is going to premiere here during Convention Days, Friday night at July 14th at 7 o'clock in the Presbyterian Church, and Saturday night at 5, it'll be in the Wesleyan Chapel. And so those are some of the events we've been working on. There's also an interfaith gathering. Sunday, the park has the brochures Amy has that are filled, 3 days full of events. And I think it just shows this diversity and also, you know, how many people from other places are coming to Seneca Falls to participate in this. And I think it's because this place just tells people that we believe in each other, we believe in the value of everybody, and everyone's voice is important. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for a short 5-minute recess here. I want to talk to you, Amy, on something real quick about parking that I just thought of. Maybe we could work on it tomorrow, but we're both thinking about it tonight. We can move on it first thing. Okay, so 5-minute recess.
Oh, I practiced.
Okay, we're back in session. We have some petitioners tonight. The first petitioner is Doug Avery. He's going to speak about open government.
My name is Doug Avery. I'm a 40-year resident of Seneca Falls, and I chair the Seneca Falls Environmental Action Committee. Tonight I'd like to shift my focus away from the landfill and examine instead some of the recent developments surrounding what happens in town board meetings. For the last 4 months, Supervisor Lazaro has moved almost capriciously to curb public participation at town board meetings. In March, no public comment was allowed. In April, yes to comment, but no to signs. In May, no to comment, yes to signs. In June, yes to comment, no to signs. Tonight, we may speak, but not hold signs, and we had to pass through the metal detector to gain entry. After last month's meeting, I contacted Mr. Robert Freeman, the Executive Director on the Committee of Open Government, which is part of the New York Department of State. His response includes the following statement: I do not believe that the supervisor may unilaterally act or establish a rule on his own. Only the board may do so following action taken by a majority of its total membership. Now, I've been attending monthly town board meetings for more than a year now. In that time, I don't ever recall witnessing a town board vote regarding signs or public comment. Certainly, the flip-flop every month clearly indicates the lack of legitimate and cohesive policy. Instead, we have a supervisor taking it upon himself to decide to ban whatever offends him most that month. It doesn't matter that every petitioner who stands at this lectern and supports landfill closure does so in a mature, civilized, and non-threatening manner. It doesn't matter that the signs we're forbidden to display are not an attack on you as the town board or the supervisor. I challenge you to explain where the menace is in the words, "Stop dumping on our family and don't trash our future." Similar circumstances surround the new controls put in place for tonight. In the publicity regarding these measures, Supervisor Lazaro makes no mention of a town board establishing a policy. Instead, every indication is that he unilaterally enacted these procedures. In doing so, he could have stated any number of logical reasons for limiting the crowd size. He could have mentioned, for instance, that it's the posted capacity of the room according to the fire marshal. In this day and age, he could easily have explained away the move to use the metal detector. Instead, what he attempted to do was paint the people who present an opposing argument as violent and a threat to public safety. He looked at the same teachers, professionals, business people, and retirees and other citizens who sadly voted him into office and saw a physical menace to which he must respond. It doesn't matter that every one of us that I know of abhors violence of any sort. It doesn't matter that the only person who's let anger mold his behavior in this setting is himself. It doesn't matter that the only person who's brought violence into this debate sits on the board. There is no threat. As it turns out, all that Supervisor Lazaro is afraid of is words that are contrary to his own position. He's using his office and his own words to paint us as violent and uncivilized. He should be ashamed of himself and should apologize as publicly as he has offended us. It's time for the town board to take a stand. It turns out you shouldn't allow the supervisor to act on his own in these matters, nor should you hide behind his actions thinking that you're not culpable. If these bans are going to remain in place, you're going to have to publicly state your position. If you truly support the repression of open government and free speech, if you too are afraid of words, you're going to have to vote accordingly and then face your constituents at the ballot box. Thank you.
I feel since that was a comment on the way I perceive the government in this town, I need to answer that. And I'll tell you a little story about last week. Well, first I'll ask Mr. Avery if he's ever come and visited me in my office. Never. Has he ever had a one-on-one conversation with me in my office? Never. A lot of the things that we do here, we spend the month before working up to. And this is a business meeting. And how do we work up to that? People who have concerns come and visit me. People who have concerns come and visit the other board members. We have committees, they come to committees. We have a water and sewer committee. We have a highway committee, and some people, this has been 2 months in the working, that people came to us and they had some flooding problems. They never brought their issues here, they came to us. And we worked on those flooding issues. We went down, we took pictures, they brought us pictures, they discussed the problems with us. We got together with the engineers last week, and this week we're going to come up with, hopefully, a start to a solution to the problem. Coming here and grandstanding, as the last petitioner did, is not a way to get things done. It's working together. Everything that I've done, the rulings that I've made at this board, because of signs, people have come to me and they've said they obstruct their vision at meetings. They're interfering in what they see, they're interfering in what they say, people are waving them back and forth when people are talking. I feel very sound that the New York State Association of Towns would agree with me on that, and the things that I've read through them would back me up. I don't do this in a vacuum. I do it in consultation with other board members. I make decisions based on my discussions with the police chief on public safety. And I did mention the fact that part of the reason that we were gonna limit this room to 80 because that's the fire capacity of the room. That's the capacity of this room, and I did mention that in the article. And it was in the article. It mentioned that there was an 80 limit capacity of this room, and it was indicated to me that we should start adhering to that. And that's what I mentioned in the article. That's what I said in the article. So, and you come in tonight and you said you don't know that. As for public participation at these meetings, we have to remember that these are open meetings, they're not public meetings. So public participation is limited by this board. Again, if you have a concern or an issue about that, my door is open. We can come to a reasonable solution. But coming here and grandstanding, and I've heard from a lot of people that, Greg, people are cherry picking everything you say, and that's what I believe that you just did tonight, Doug. You cherry picked everything I say. Come to me, sit in my office, which you refused to do. You were up here the other week, wanting to get on the agenda for open government. I was in my office. You could have walked on, you could have sat with me, and we could have had a conversation. And one of the things I probably would have done is shown you some things that I've read on open government from the New York State Association of Towns. Now, people interpret things differently. I'm not going to say our interpretations are going to be the same. But I believe that when you have the written word and you're looking at those things, you're going to have an interpretation of it. If we agree to disagree after that, that's fine. But to come here and say the things that I did have been wrong, and I'm only looking at the people who are protesting on one side, no, the reason I did it is all protesters. People have come here and they've petitioned us for many things on one side or the other on the Seneca Meadows issue. And sometimes I get concerned at the repetitiveness of those petitioners. And as a town board, as a town supervisor, if comments become repetitive, I have the right to stop those comments. And I feel we're in good stead, because if we're going to sit here during a business meeting and not get our normal business done, then that doesn't help us. So to end this, what I'm saying is the business of the town doesn't happen here. It happens between the time this meeting ends and until the next meeting. And if you don't have the courtesy to come and see me one-on-one, and you have to stand here and make commentary on my behavior, I take offense to that.
Greg, all you've done, you communicate with us through the newspaper, and all you do is make comments on our behavior. So at some point, you've shut off the lines of communication, because we have communicated in the past before. We have each other's phone number. You've called me before, and we've spoken.
Have you ever called me? No, I've called you once, and I said my door's always open. You've never called me, Mr. Avery. I've called you
And
once.
we had.
Right? So don't give the impression, Mr. Avery, that we are communicating. I sat across from you at a meeting last week. It was I who said, "Hello, Doug," and that's all you said. And you knew at that point that you were going to give this comment. You came to the board office the next day and signed up to make public comment, where you could have talked to me. I called you once on an issue.
And
Because of what I
I
read.
will not talk to you in your office as long as you're
Okay.
calling us names in the newspaper. You have established this bar
And
for our
what names have I
behavior.
called you in the newspaper?
This whole thing is zealots, first of all,
Zealots is a definition.
with a
of what I-
religious undertone that
Yeah.
either
What
you
I
don't
see.
understand or you don't understand your people to understand why some are offended by it. But this whole thing, if you may
One-
have,
one-
you
one
may
word.
have, then you may
One
have
word
asked.
offended you that much? Then you
No,
should-
what offended me most was what happened this week with the metal detector and the capacity and all that stuff. Because you called us, you offended us more than you ever have before.
Did I call out any party, one side or the other? No.
No, it's carefully constructed.
Oh, it's carefully constructed.
Yeah, it was.
You're cherry picking what I said.
Yeah.
You are cherry picking what I said. And it wasn't carefully constructed, except for the fact that I went and talked to the police chief. And then I constructed that myself. Okay, yeah, I asked for help in saying, how should I word this? What's the best way so I don't offend people? And I was told that did not offend people. Okay?
Alexandria shooting didn't offend anybody?
Well-
You linked us with a maniac shooter in the same sentence.
Because it happened
Oh,
in recent time, and people wanted me to say, because of recent current events, we need to start having people come through the metal detector, which gives the same impression.
well, no, you specified a maniac shooter
Yes.
that went out and shot Republicans.
I don't,
So, I mean, really,
And-
it doesn't take a lot to figure that one out.
Your whole
I
stand was about
think,
people.
excuse me, I think you're cherry picking what I say. You don't sit down, you don't talk to me one-on-one. I just gave you a scenario of how we found a possible solution to the problem by people coming and sitting in my office and talking to me and other board members one-on-one, and we find a solution. I don't believe you really know how government works unless you're in this position.
It doesn't work.
And I'm sorry, and, you know, you've written stories about me, Doug, in the newspaper. You say I'm being wined and dined.
You are.
Seneca Meadows, okay, 1 second. Okay, Doug, you were a teacher, correct? I'm gonna make an analogy on this. You were a teacher. I was on the school board. I was president. At the time I was president, I was on a negotiation team for teachers' contracts. My wife was a teacher, I hung out with the teacher. You, or none of the other teachers ever mentioned that was a conflict of interest, which could have been seen as a clear conflict of interest. But you didn't mention that way back then. But when I decide to sit down and talk to two people from the landfill one night about Braciole, that was a topic of discussion because we both have Italian backgrounds, and we were talking about how our grandmothers and mothers made Braciole. Now, if I'm being wined and dined, I don't know
What,
when.
one time, are you saying you only one time had lunch or dinner with somebody from?
I have lunch and dinner with a lot of people in town. A lot of people,
All right.
okay? And I buy dinner sometimes, they buy dinner sometimes. So, I mean, if you see that as a conflict of interest, if you see that as being wined and dined, you know, and there's a certain amount of free speech that, you know, free speech, everyone says free speech, you should be able to use it as much as possible. Well, the First Amendment Constitution speaks clearly against slander and libel and inflammatory speech that's going to defame someone. So, courts have ruled against that. And when you write in a paper about me being wined and dined and influenced by people because I sit down and have a beer with them, or I might have a sandwich with them, I believe that's really almost libel, slander.
Only if it's not true.
It's not true, Mr. Avery, and you know it's not true.
I'm sorry, so you,
You know,
Greg, can we have a beer later?
there's enough violence in this world to last us till the end of this century.
He
I understand.
He came up and he started talking
That's
to me
right.
about things that I'm doing wrong.
I'm just saying.
I had to defend myself.
Yes, I understand that. You have a right to defend yourself. But this bickering is not helping anybody.
So, if you
Not
believe it's true,
disrespect to you, but I think it's better if I just go.
okay, leave. Doug, I think you know me better than that, the little you do know me.
I thought I did know you.
I was, and if you believe that, I can't help what you believe. And that's wrong to say, and it is slander. Our next speaker is Jean Gilroy. She's going to talk about the SMI landfill.
I appreciated the speaker from the National Women's Hall of Fame, or she just told us I was wrong. It's a national park. She said everyone's voice is important. That was the last thing she said when she left. And I think it's very true. And I gotta tell you, I'm 69 years old, and I'm scared to death of you. And that's why I don't come to your office and talk to you. All you do is gavel and yell and shut people up, and so I don't work that way. Anyway, this is my view. My name is Jean Lashbrook Gilroy. My family has lived on gravel road since 1960. I'm next door to a dairy farm with 100 cows. Twice a year they empty their manure pits. It stinks for 2 days. But mostly I smell Seneca Meadows. Anybody notice your trees are dying? Mine are. Trees are nature's way of cleaning toxic gases from the air. They're the first responders to tragedy. And I watch the trees. Last year I read about a special town meeting that would be open to all speakers who speak about the landfill. Probably 50 people were there. Who was not there was our town supervisor. He walked out on us. Now he calls these constituents zealots and insinuates he has to protect himself with metal detectors and increased police protection. Really? Retired school teachers? Businessmen and women? Actual politicians? Environmental activists? Thinkers? Writers? Mothers? Fathers? I'm not a scientist, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a public speaker, obviously. But I am a mother and a grandmother, and I Google things. And I have found, yes, there's very little evidence that gases from a massive landfill are harmful or pose a threat to our groundwater, or that liners break, or that methane gas explodes into a holocaustic explosion. Yeah, we have no evidence because nothing this massive has ever been built. Nothing this toxic has ever leaked. We don't know, and we won't know until there is a massive explosion, or a methane buildup, or a liner leak. Has the town of Seneca Falls made any preparations for this? Have you trained first responders? Have you equipped anybody for such an explosion? Has it ever crossed your mind? Will you sit with your grandchildren who can no longer live here because they were born with cardiac birth defects, or have asthma, or your wife has cancer, or we have to ship in water because our groundwater is contaminated, and we have no industry because it's all moved out, and the trash train rolls through the center of Seneca Falls, and all the beautiful mansions are in disrepair because no one can stand the smell of the train and abandon them. And of course, all our taxes will go up because nobody will be paying them anyway. And will you tell your grandchildren that your name is on a plaque at the town hall for your great service to our community? Will you point to it and proudly say that Seneca Meadows was a great friend to your grandfather because they bought you lunch, and that you let them destroy our community? When I was a senior at Miners Academy, Mrs. Harold Sanderson came to our assembly, and she told the story of creation.
You had 3 minutes, Mrs. Gilroy.
I got 3 sentences. This is what she said. God created the earth and the skies and the waters, and then he rested. And he rested and he put his hand upon the earth and created the Finger Lakes. He saw that it was good, and in the palm of his hand was Seneca Falls. And that spot was blessed. And now it's full of manure.
Okay, we'll go right to the agenda. Make a move to approve the minutes of a regular meeting on June 6, 2017. I need a second.
A second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Reports. I make a motion to approve the dog control officer report. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Make a motion to approve the Commissioner of Parks and Recreation report. I need a second.
Second.
Discussion.
Just wanted to update you all real quick, briefly, on the NBC Channel 3 Yorktown designation that will occur. Seneca Falls has been highlighted as a Yorktown from July 10th through 14th, which is next week. And the town was able to shoot a commercial with quite a bit of footage. I sent most of you that footage today, but you got a chance to review it. It came out great. So they will send me a schedule, so I'll let you know when those will be on, but they'll be on during the news each week, as well as during some of the other more popular programs. So I'll keep you posted as to where that's going to be, but I think it came out well.
On the comment, I watched it, I mean, good hill, it was
Good.
Further discussion? Make a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. I make a motion to approve the zoning officer's report.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Make a motion to approve the highway superintendent's report. Need a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in, yes?
Yep, next week, we're looking to, if the weather permits, paving Baird Street. We're gonna close that completely down at 7 o'clock at night and work till it's done. And the coordinator with Stu, they're gonna help us out there, so, it'll be sometime next week that we do that road. So the public knows that it will be closed from 7 till we get it done. We're gonna have to do it at night because of the traffic.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I make a motion to approve the assessor's report.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. So, anything to report to us?
Just that we all know that there's the Article 78 has been filed regarding local law number 2 of 2017, and the board has hired outside counsel to assist the town with that, and her name is Yvonne Hennessy of Barnsley Damon, but otherwise the first thing she was able to do was to secure an adjournment so that the original dates and timeline of the original proceeding has been pushed back to where the first appearance before the judge will be in mid-August. So, but we'll have another meeting prior to that date.
Okay, thank you. Make a motion to approve the town justice's report. Second.
Seconded.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Make a motion to approve the water and sewer department report.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I make a motion to approve the police chief's report.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Baker, do you have anything to report on?
I did submit a report
Yeah.
this month, if any questions on what we talked about. I think the one kind of different thing, it was just the work we did with the meeting we had with the residents regarding some of the flooding issues. And I thought it was a very productive meeting and identified some concerns that we're working on.
Make a motion to approve the report from Barton and Judas.
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Are there any other committee reports? Okay, we'll go on to communications. No communications?
Yes.
There's nothing under there. Okay, okay. Where they dated from? Make a motion to approve the communications received during, well, from the time of our last meeting to tonight, July 5th.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Old business, sale of condominium and surplus real properties.
Yes, since our last meeting, I've been in contact with the purchasers of the 10 Fall Street building. We have gone through some documents, and I've obtained the contract signed by the purchasers, as well as their deposit towards the purchase. So they've submitted that, I'm holding that in my escrow account. I do expect to conduct the closing prior to our next town board meeting. And for 60 State Street, again, I've been in contact with the purchaser of that building, and I also expect to be have the closing on that property. If not prior to the next town board meeting, then shortly thereafter. I know he has trouble with his original attorney is not currently available, so he's got to find different counsel, and we'll proceed to closing on that matter as well. So, other than that, the next two are both works in progress, and we just had to carry those over to the next meeting with that ENC.
Okay, we recently received a letter from Susan Moravec, Director of Resale Services at Petro. Recently it was brought to our attention, TA Operating, and that's Petro, has been paying the electric bill for the pump station located at 1684 Mound Road, belonging to a township of Seneca Falls. When NICE updated their files, it was discovered that the pump station being billed to TA was an error and in the process of reimbursing the past 2 years of payments. I am closing invoices dated from January 2013 until November 2014 and requesting the town of Seneca Falls reimburse TA for the payments made in the amount of $2,282.76. So I'm making a motion.
So yeah, just that I've looked into this, discussed this with our engineers. I'm afraid that this is accurate,
Yeah.
and this is the pump station that the town does the operation and maintenance for. This is billed as part of that. I don't know what happened in January 2013 that would have caused NICEAG to start billing somebody else for this, but yeah, this is something that, for whatever reason, they started sending the bills to them. They paid it, but this really should have been coming to the town straight along, as it was prior to January 2013.
And we're going to reimburse Petro.
Well,
They've been paying it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion to reimburse Petro in the amount of $2,282.76 for their payments to New York State Electric and Gas, which we were responsible for.
I'll second
Discussion. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Under new business, approval of special events.
None submitted this month.
Okay. Water sewer declare surplus 2002 back trailer. This request for approval of surplusing the old 2002 water and sewer department back trailer. The trailer is no longer in use and in need of many repairs. We will place this trailer on Auctions International with board approval. So I make that as a motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We received a letter from Megan Langley, who submitted her resignation. Pardon?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. So- Maybe we should have practice for this, huh?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
I know.
Resignation of the part-time clerk, Megan Langley, and I would like to make a motion that we accept this resignation with regret. Megan has worked for the town for the past 7.5 years, and she's been a great employee, and really a pleasure to know and work with. So I make a motion to approve her resignation with regret. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, department heads, we're gonna have need another department head meeting. I'd like to suggest Wednesday, August 2nd. I'm going on a vacation to Colorado from the 13th to the 25th.
I'll be on the phone.
Second. How about the 8th? No, the 8th. No, we can't do the 8th. How about the 7th, which is a Monday? It'd be 11 o'clock in the morning. The 7th for the department head meeting, August 7th. Okay. 11 o'clock a.m. on August 7th, and that'll be at the rec center again. Okay. Thank you. Make a motion to approve the budget transfers as listed.
Seconded.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I'm gonna ask to table the next item, Sharon leave time, leave share program. I want everyone to take a good look at this memo that Bev made out. She seemed to be pretty clear and concise, and she did a good job on it. I just want to make sure that everyone understands it before we approve it. Is that okay if I table it? I need a second.
1 second.
Discussion? So that'll be placed on the next, on our next meeting. That's under the title Leave Share Program. I'd like to make a motion to adjust the salary of the water account clerk to increase the wage of Dusty Lee. How do you pronounce the last name? Preventure. I'd like to make a resolution to increase the wage of Dusty Lee Preventure retroactively from a current wage of $16.86 to a starting wage of senior account clerk of $17.49 an hour as of February 8, 2017. The retroactive adjustment to be paid through this payroll.
And I'd also like to add that at the time working as the senior account clerk, prior one, her appointment, this is in the budget, if it's below whatever, other secret trip was budgeted for in the budget. So we won't have no budgetary impact.
New paid family leave law. I'd like to table this also, make sure everyone takes a
We
good
got
look.
vote in now,
What?
under the raise. And Dusty's.
Oh, I thought with it.
Yeah, no, I just read that it was already,
Oh, okay.
wasn't gonna
okay,
have,
there was
wasn't gonna have any
discussion. Okay,
budgetary
sorry.
impact in the budget because,
Any other discussion? All in favor?
aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. See why we need a practice session? New paid family leave. I'd like to, before we put any new policies into our handbook, I'd like to make sure that the board reads them, totally understands them. And so I'm asking all board members to take a clear look at this, and we can approve it at our next meeting.
The memo by Bev, very straightforward, closely tracks the wording of the New York State insurance fund documents that have been presented to us. This is, the change in the town's policy would reflect the change in the state's policy. So it's just keeping the town in line with the state policy, and the state's policy does not take effect until January 1 of 2018. So you have plenty of time to consider this and take understanding before acting on it.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjust the salary of the wastewater treatment.
Tabling that
Oh, yeah, table it. Oh. All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. I'd like to make a motion to adjust the salary of the wastewater treatment plant operator from his current salary of $72,114 to $78,000. Is there discussion?
Beginning with payroll 14.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to make a motion to approve an educational advance of $300 each for a total of $600 to the assessor and her aide in that office.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. Contribution to Seneca Falls Rotary Club. We got a letter from Mr. Dave Swenson. In the past, the Seneca Falls Town Board has been kind enough to help support the Seneca Falls Rotary Club with our major fundraiser, Wine and Musical Festival in the Goose Watch Winery on September 10th. The proceeds will go to the children in upstate New York and Malawi. In Malawi, we are funding clean water projects. So we are donating $150 to the Seneca Falls Rotary Club. Motion properly seconded.
Second, it's in the budget.
It's in the budget. So all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Make a motion to approve the Early Pest Control Services for the municipal building for a total of for the fee per initial service, $190, and the fee per maintenance service, is $95. So for that total, I'd like to make a motion to approve that.
I'll second it.
Discussion, Chief, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, sure. So what I recognized was carpenter bees drilling holes up into the soffit and damaging the wood along the soffit of the building. So I asked what the town uses for pest control, had them come out, give us an estimate, and then presented it to the town board to see how they would like to proceed.
Also, it has a couple covered in these now, so you can go all over to the thing.
Yeah, and they do what we do.
Perfect.
Okay, so motion was made, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We'd like to make a motion to approve the allocation of $55,000 to local development corporation. It's already in the budget.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the allocation of $500 to contribution to Seneca Falls Community Band. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. This time I make a motion to congratulate Superintendent Bob McKeveny of the Seneca Falls School District for the Rural Schools Association of New York State is recognizing Seneca Falls Central School District Superintendent Bob McKeveny for the William Deming Recognition Award. This award goes to the school administrator who is recognized for long and meritorious service to education. The Seneca Falls School Board of Education nominated Bob, and I'm very pleased that he was chosen. Bob will be presented this award on the 9th of July at the Rural Schools Conference in Cooperstown. So congratulations goes to Mr. McKeveny, and I'd like to put that in a motion. It was made, properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Under the highway, I'd like to table this for now and move it because I think it needs further discussion on the purchase of 4 bobcats. So I make a motion to table.
Might have declared surplus.
Oh, highway.
John,
Okay.
the John Deere, the riding one, the flow one. I think we talked about that flow one before.
Well, I'm gonna skip ahead and just
Okay.
purchase them before I go back to P on the highway. So I'd like to make a motion to table that for now and we'll discuss it. We still need further discussion. Yes, Jim?
Well, I was just gonna say that this one bid that we got, which is a very good bid, is only good for 30 days. So I got both the quotes here, they're both under state contract. We've had a lot, I've been complaining to them about the lack of power because they were, the new machines that come out with this new emissions, they're M engines and they all lack power, so they're upgrading all 4 of those machines to 13 horsepower more. And the company that we dealt with previously came in $7,600 lower than the other company. And that bid is only good for 30 days at time, so you guys can do what you want.
For both state bids, right?
Correct.
The difference is really the amount that they're willing to pay off the trade-in. That's
Yes.
They're both under the same bid contract, the same state numbers. However, Jim was able to get a better number for a trade-in from the low bid as opposed to the high bid. That's where the change is.
Still think there needs to be more discussion on whether you have to turn these Bobcats over. How old are they, Jim? 2 years?
16s.
Okay.
But like I said, their lack of power, and we've been complaining about it, so this company, Finger Lakes, Bobcat of the Finger Lakes, decided to really cut us a good deal to replace these, to upgrade all 4 machines at that price.
This is the budget item,
Yes, I do have the money
for the
for
budget.
There's a motion to table, and seconded.
Who seconded?
Did you second it?
I'll second.
So there's a motion on the table and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I still think we should save the money now.
Okay, then
Yeah.
you'll, and I can understand, but
I know it's a budget item, and I know sometimes you don't like the budget item, but that's a good savings for us. And the more horsepower, it's up to the rest of you.
okay, so you can vote not to table. All in favor of tabling, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No,
No.
Take a roll call vote.
Okay, Lou Ferrara,
Table.
Rita Wayles,
no,
Tom Rizica,
Table it.
Greg Mazzaro,
Table.
Nick Coretta,
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Police budget transfers and purchases. Making a motion to approve the police budgets, transfers and purchases. Need a second.
Second.
Chief, you have anything to add to this?
No, the document I provided explained it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. No water and sewer credits, no executive session. Make a motion to pay the bills.
second that.
Special order of the day, I make a motion to adjourn. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes.